Imagine a hospital with hundreds and hundreds of patients every day, right? With different symptoms, with different illness and different histories. It is not per visit to the doctor, which is the ultimate treatment to that patient. It is a decades and decades of clinical research of that particular pattern of the illness. This is where the clinical research organizations come into play and play a very prominent role. This is where they bridge the gap between science and care. And today, our guest, Vikrant Gill, is from one such global leading clinical research organization, Fortrea. We have wonderful and special guest with us, Vikrant Gill, who is serving as Director Market Research, and he is specialized at the Analytical Skills. He has plethora of experience from the healthcare industry. He comes from earlier to Fortrea, he comes from the Eli Lilly and the Novartis background. So let's welcome Vikrant Gill. Hi, Vikrant. Thank you so much for taking out time, even during your PhD work, and joining our podcast today, Vikrant.
Oh, thank you so much, Nageshri. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to share some of the insights what I've learned throughout my journey, and I'm really excited to, you can say, be on the podcast today. Thank you.
Absolutely, Vikrant. I'm really looking forward to learn a lot. How is things at Fortrea, and how is the healthcare industry, as a whole, responding to the new technology, let it be AI, Gen AI data. So let's start with this, Vikrant. If you could share, to our audience, what is Fortrea about? Because it's a healthcare GCC in India, how big it is, and also your current role at Fortrea, Vikrant.
Sure, absolutely. I think you covered a bit in your setup. So Fortrea is basically a clinical research organization. It's a what we call ourselves is a bridge between a drug which is in the research field and then getting that to the patient, right? So we work with multiple stakeholders. We work with our sponsors, which is pharmaceutical and biotech organizations, and then we work with our sites, clinical research sites, patients, and everything, and see that the drug which is in development, how do we bring that drug to the patients who actually is in need to take that medication. It's a global organization, so we have around 30 years of experience in the clinical research space. Fortrea is a new name because we've been part of our parent company LabCorp. It's been
LabCorp.
4 years, we became a new entity. But with the overall experience, we've been almost having 3 decades of experience in the clinical research organization. It's a very good setup in India. We have multiple offices in India. We have offices across the globe. And work across almost all the therapeutic areas wherever the research or the innovation in the clinical domain is happening.
Absolutely. No, fantastic, Vikrant. So how big is the team here, Vikrant? And if you could broadly give, the IT and the data analytic, verticals under this Vikrant.
Right. So Fortrea, we have 3 offices. Our workforce is around 4,500 to 5,000 in India, right? It's a big CRO in terms of Indian presence, the presence in India perspective. We have multiple functions within Fortrea, like as the CRO would have it. We have functions which works on the clinical development, clinical monitoring. We have marketing, commercial, sales, every function primarily which comes in that one.
Yeah.
And from the IT perspective, I think IT has become the backbone of every industry.
Yeah.
We need to have an IT function with the kind of advances which is happening recently. So we do have a well-worked IT system internally, which works on all different kinds of requirements what we have.
Absolutely. And your current role, Vikrant?
Right. Yeah. Sorry. So I'm part of marketing and head customer and market insights team within the marketing. So my role is to look at what's happening at the industry level to really see, okay, what exactly is happening in industry level, what kind of development is going on, how our competitors are, you can say, working on different areas, where the clinical research is going, what direction it is going, what therapeutic areas are growing, what are the potential in those therapeutic areas, and then take those insights and bring it inward and work with the internal business teams, operations teams to really refine the strategy what we have at Fortrea, and then see that how can we provide the best care to the patients while working with the sponsors and taking those insights into our daily action plan. So um, as the name of my team says, customer market insights. So we look at both the customers from our sponsors perspective, stakeholders from patients perspective, and then try to generate insights from the macro and micro level, and then give it to our internal teams what their strategies, or they look at the different perspective, how can they take those strategies into their work and make something good out of it.
Sure, Vikrant. And Vikrant, you're working with a global team altogether.
Yes. So Fortrea is a global organization.
Yeah.
We move across multiple countries, and my team works across multiple countries, multiple domains. So this is a global role which is based
Yeah.
out now.
Sure, Vikrant, because you mentioned multiple stakeholders. Let me start with this question, because you are into the clinical research organization and you will have to day in, day out deal with the sponsors at one end, the pharmaceuticals and the healthcare, or on the other hand, the patients, right? So, and they must be having different priorities altogether. So how do you manage, collaborating with the different stakeholders? What are the key challenges and how do you overcome that, Vikrant?
Right. Whenever we look at multiple stakeholders, I always an example of, you can say, conducting an orchestra kind of a scenario, right? Where orchestrating multiple things together. So when you say about the stakeholders, there are sponsors, there are regulators, there are tech providers, there are physicians, patients, internal stakeholders. Everywhere you can say you have um, people working on different priorities. So everybody is having their own priorities, and then you need to primarily have an alignment across all these priorities. Any misalignment between these priorities actually can cause an issue, right? So success basically under these priorities requires shared goal. So you really need to have a shared goal across everybody, where primarily you see that, okay, everybody's onto the same page. Then you need to have structured governance frameworks, which primarily comes into the Presky models, or who does what, right? So the roles and responsibility aligned to each and everything. And each team is equipped to do the kind of role what they do. It not every team is doing everything, right? So they need to be having a collaboration across the teams as well. So whenever we look at these areas, so these are the basically the traits of a person to manage across different stakeholders with multiple polarities, and then see that how does the better outcome come from people who are working across different locations.
Sure, Vikrant. No, that's interesting. And so now, because everyone is adopting to AI, and I'm sure, clinical trials and things like research, the way it was done earlier and to now, as a healthcare system altogether, if not particularly with Fortrea, Vikrant, how do you see clinical trials, research organizations are adopting to AI, and which are the areas where it is showing immediate adoption, and which are the areas where it shows resistance, because again AI is a double-ended sword.
Yes, I think we are at a time right now where healthcare and the clinical research is among the most, or amidst the most transformative period, right? There's an AI has taken up a boom in the last 3 to 4 years to a very, very high speed. Everything is changing with the kind of new technologies and new things that's coming up, and everyone needs to adapt to things which is coming in that direction, right? Now, when it comes to clinical research, yes, AI has made an impact and continue to make an impact in that one. There are a lot of areas where I can think of that AI is actually making an impact. One is drug discovery, right? So drug discovery earlier used to have a simulation models, which used to run in that direction, and everything happens in that way. But now with AI, you can do the predictive modeling quite fast. They're cutting down onto the times. So that's one area where you could say the clinical research, with the beginning of the clinical research, it is happening. Then within the clinical operations, AI has started to make an impact, like patient recruitment, site selection, which was manual earlier. Now with the use of AI, you can run through a lot of database quickly and see that what could be the ideal site for a particular trial, what could be the ideal site where the patients will be available depending upon the history of that particular site. And those are the areas primarily you would want to go and look for your trial perspective. So it is giving you the insights in that one, which was manual in the past. Then pharmacovigilance, where majority of the adverse event reporting is happening. A lot of automation, AI is coming in that place. That how do we make the reporting faster, quicker, and in a way which adds value in terms of the work which is already done by humans in that one. Then the analytics parts, which
Yeah.
is also the end of this one, right? The analytics, I think the progress in analytics is leaps and bound. There's significant progress has happened in analytics,
Yeah.
where I think a lot of tech companies have started using analytics from AI and Gen AI side of this one. I have been in an era where working on one request for data analysis could take around 3 to 4 days or 5 days. And yesterday I was working with Copilot to really run the correlation analysis, which took me 10 seconds. I just need to give the prompt and then the correlation analysis was ready. So there is a significant impact of AI and specifically Gen AI now going to the agentic AI and everything. There's a lot of changes which is happening. I believe this continue to be gonna grow. How far we will reach, that's yet to be seen, but there's tremendous impact of AI.
And tell me, Vikrant, is it in the areas of ethical, and these are the areas where you're little, careful about AI? The other areas,
Correct. I think that's a perfect thing what you just mentioned, ethical, right? And that is specifically in the clinical research. I think ethical works in every area, whether it is in every, but for clinical research, it becomes very, very important because you deal with patients. Deal with something which actually is going to impact patient's life and have a result-driven kind of a scenario, that one. So ethical becomes very, very important. Now, there are ways and means by which the ethical, I would say the ethics needs to bring into the AI. There already been some bit of roping which is happening, but yes, the work still needs to be done. Like one example is that the transparency onto the backend or maybe the algorithm, right, which is still not known to multiple areas. If at a regulatory places or at clinical research places, those become a little more transparent, it's actually going to add value. So having a strong ethical kind of product where you can get to know each and everything, that's going to add value because you're ultimately dealing with the patients in the clinical research.
No, absolutely, Vikrant. And so, Vitika, to follow-up question to that, which are the ethical nuances, while using AI, one researcher should use, whenever they are using an AI, because they are dealing with the sensitive data.
Right. The one thing is the privacy, right? Privacy of the data is very, very important. How the data is managed, who's looking at the data, how the data is being handled, and it is a patient data, right? How when we look at the biasness and unbiasedness within the AI algorithms, how it is being handled. Now looking at the consents and transparency, so you need to really be having a consent of the patients whom you're using the data and how the consents has been obtained on how trial will be data using that one. So that's another one which is coming in that one.
In which country it is, in which countries do you see there's a strong, they're following it correctly to the T?
I guess that it needs to, for clinical research, we have to follow in every country because this is a very, very regulated scenario. When we work on any kind, which is an ethical kind of a thing which comes into play, it needs to have strong background check because ultimately you're involving patient in that one. But there are now data privacy rules which is in place, like GDPR, which is in the right? So you need to be compliant to the GDPR rules, and how the data is being used, where it will be shared, how the data is going out to the country. It should not be there in that one. So those kind of ethical nuances, you need to have it in place whenever you look from the AI as a maybe product perspective, or using AI in any of the research what you do.
Absolutely, that's helpful, Vikrant. And also, you mentioned about data, and you're analyzing the patient's data and things, and you're also expert in analytical skills, right,
Right.
Vikrant? So to my other speakers also, they keep mentioning that the data is the new fuel to the AI, and one common challenge that they mention is data is not that clean. We have to really work around. So if you have also come across similar situation, or it is your data and analytics team which takes care of it, and you are good with the data given to you.
No, I actually echo the thoughts what you just mentioned by the previous speakers, because AI actually shot up in very small time frame. In last 3 to 4 years, it went from zero to maybe you can say 1,000 kind of scenario. But the way the data has been captured has not considered that someday we will have an AI which can do everything in that past.
Oh,
And so data is definitely the next fuel. If you are having a good, clean data, you can actually do or generate a lot of insights with the AI. But the problem is data is messy.
mm,
Now, there are a lot of ifs and buts are here, how the data is being collected, how the data is being captured, what kind of attributes or pointers has been used when the data is being collected. Does two databases speak to each other? What are the commonalities and differentiations among the data sets? So a lot of groundwork actually needs to be done
mm,
for analytics to be done on on that data. You need to
mm,
clean the data. You need to make sure the data is in the right way it is required, and then you can apply machine learning models and an AI on top of it to get the insights of it. So that is there, but it
oh,
is slowly actually becoming a little more
good.
standardized, because now
Mm,
people are learning that this is how the data can be used. Now let's put some governance models of data collection or data capturing at the very first itself, which primarily will give you a data which is more cleaner in nature, and then you
mm,
can be able to generate insights. Because I'll give you an example of real world evidence. There is strong push on real world evidence that okay, uh,
yeah,
if suppose there's a medication which is supposed to come in hypertension space, and a lot of patients have already taken hypertension medication in the past. Can I use the real world evidence data, which is from the actual patients, and
yeah,
try to cut down the number of patients which is required for the upcoming trial, right? So to
wow.
save time in terms of the patient recruitment, it also saves the money. Now, the question lies here it is that the data which is already there, is it good enough for a regulatory submission? Because actually we'll be submitting it to the regulatory. Second, is the data clean enough to have a strong valid claim coming out of it, which is supporting the potential trial where you'd want to use it. So data is key, that's for sure. I think we're going there. It's going to take a little time, but eventually we'll reach there in terms of the lineage of the data.
Absolutely. No, wonderful. Actually, you already answered one question which I was about to ask. So like maybe the follow-up of that, you mentioned that with the existing data of the maybe similar patients, you're cutting down with the actual number of live patients which may be required to analyze, right? So this is one interesting case of AI being used. Then which are the other interesting AI features according to you, and which how do you see the future of AI upcoming in the healthcare, Vikrant?
Well, I think the AI has a very big potential. I'll give you one more example as the decentralized trials, which basically in earlier days used to happen that the patient needs to come to the site to get the medication and then
Mhm.
go back, right? Now the decentralized trials are also coming up where, and this has happened after COVID, wherein patient gets the medication at home, they
Yeah,
need to go to travel to the hospitals, right? So it is now picking up quite a bit depending upon the therapeutic area where it is going through. Now, how does a physician get to know about the patient's health? Then the wearable comes into the play, right? So you're having a wearable which is attached to the patient with specific kind of data which gets recorded, and that's where the AI comes in. So you get the alerts, okay, this patient has this kind of thing which is there. So there are areas where the AI is gonna make a strong impact, and then they're making already, but it's going to, I think we are in a way of validation because clinical research is a very regulated phase, right? We cannot have anything comes up and it's okay, let's use in clinical trial. No, we
Yeah,
can't do
yeah.
that. It needs to have validation, it needs to have regulatory approval, it needs to have all those areas covered. So in that perspective, we are trying to embrace the new technology as and when we feel okay, there's a potential benefit. But these kind of a scenario where we see okay, it's going to make an impact. One of the scenario, right? There will be many more which will come through. But one of these example in terms of the AI is getting utilized and then giving us the insights, making the trial a little more feasible, adding convenience to patient, physicians, and giving the accurate data to our sponsors and regulators.
Sure, Vikrant. And also to some extent, is it bringing down the decision-making time span, Vikrant?
Faster. Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's where the analytics, I can take an example from analytics.
Yeah,
Um, Earlier, when you do the analysis, you go to the data, right? You slice and dice the data, prepare PowerPoint presentation or Excel
yeah,
dashboard, right? And then it takes time because it's not that quick,
yeah.
right? Now you integrate 10 different data sources at the back end, and then you
Mm,
have like chat GPT feature where
mm,
you write, okay, can you please tell me where my market share has gone down, right? So it'll give you, okay, the market share of brand X has gone down in
mm,
these countries. And then now the next step of this is, okay, because there will be prompt which will come. Do you want to know the reason, right? So you
mm,
click on that one. Again, it will go crawl through all the databases and see what could be the probable and possible reason through a correlation analysis and throw you out some of the insights which from the
mm.
data you can make it quickly. So the work which was being done in a week's time now is being done maybe in minutes. What it'll
Okay.
do is it'll enhance or speed up the process of decision making because you're able to take actions
Mm.
based on insights what you're getting.
Absolutely, Vikrant. And earlier, to this about AI conversation, you mentioned you're already using co-pilots and all. So because we are at our venture, we advocate for the startups. So and the SaaS products. So would like to understand from you, Vikrant, that how healthcare system all as a whole are adopting and welcoming the collaboration or the co-creation with the SaaS tools, outside their organization, Vikrant.
I guess no single organization can solve today's healthcare challenges alone.
Mm.
Um, Vendors, SaaS providers, right? They provide niche expertise from data analytics platform to maybe patient engagement solutions to site identification. That for a pharma or a CRO to build in-house might take time, right? Or maybe we would want to focus on the capabilities, what we have it
Yeah.
than to the other ones, right? So successful collaboration actually builds an ecosystem. So it's not like a sponsor vendor collaboration kind of a scenario. It's an ecosystem where you are providing your specialist skills or the niche skills what you have, and vendors more or less acting as a strategic partner. So that is what it is there in that case. I think none of the organization can survive without having a very superb collaboration or an agreement with the specific skill set or specific kind of products which is being provided by even SaaS providers or anybody else in that case.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that, Vikrant. And also one more thing, Vikrant, clinical research organization and the healthcare systems, itself will have a procurement team, which is some at times becomes a bottleneck. Um, so why it is so, and how as an organization, altogether, it comes to overcome that challenge, Vikrant?
So clinical research companies or pharmaceutical companies, they are very, very regulated,
Mm,
right? We work with the regulatories, we work with system which requires compliance, right? Which are getting audited on a very regular time. So procurement in healthcare is generally a little bit of marathon kind of a scenario where it takes time, and that's what the challenge what you just mentioned, right? And the reason for it is that compliance checks, data security evaluations, looking into a little more deeper into the contract from that, okay, how does it stand? Because we are a regulated company. We have to have an answers for everything what we do internally. Because at the end, what we do actually is going to impact on patient's life. So that's where there's a little more scrutiny on anything what we bring in-house, and needs to work within the framework of regulations what primarily set by the maybe the country or maybe the company that needs to fall into that one place. And that's why you can see that sometimes the vendor selection or onboarding the vendor, it might take longer than primarily what you see in other organizations where it's a little more faster. It's not that we don't want to do it, it's just that we have the processes which we are governed by, and everybody has to do a check on the processes from legal and compliance perspective.
Got it. Vikrant. Sure. And now shifting the gears now, you said it's 4,500 plus team members in India. What is your team building mantra, Vikrant?
So for me, the team building mantras, basically, I believe in empowering the team. That is the first thing, primarily what you need to do. Second, how do I align my team with the broader organization goal? And what are the ways in which we can inspire the team? So these are three things primarily what we see it. When I say empower, we need to give people a little more freedom to make mistakes and learn from them, and then trying to bring the leadership out of those uh, team
Can you
members.
share a couple of examples if you?
For me, like giving an example is that we had an intern hired this year. Generally, in organization, we see that interns are not being put forward in majority of the calls, but we said, okay, please go ahead and present it to our internal customers, right? Even if it is senior stakeholders, let's do that. No worries, we are there at the call. If something goes here and there, we'll help you out. But go ahead and present. So this is how you tell the team, okay, no, there's a back which is there. Let me go and do my work and share it with the other people, which boosts confidence, which boosts, okay, there is an engagement or there is an effort which is being put by the organization into me to grow into a successful career. Because this is an internal perspective I'm talking about, not an employee. Then shared vision, which I generally believe that it is needed. Like what happens is when you got it as a part of the customer market insights team, we do get a lot of requests. Okay, can you please give me this? Right, that's absolutely we can do, but can you give us a little more background that why do you need this and where you want to use it? We just ask these two simple questions, which will help us to really see where it's going to get used and what will be the outcome of that this month. And that primarily will give it to our team members to do the discussion with the internal stakeholders and understand, okay, who's going to use it, because then you connect the dots. Once you connect the dots, you'll be able to do it more in a way which motivates you to do it, right? Because ultimately, this is going to impact some of the clinical trial process, some of the clinical trial strategy, and at the end, it's going to add value to the patient's life. So we would want to take care of that one. And then third is that how do we give recognition and internal opportunities to the internal people, right? So recognition is one which we do every quarter without a fall. We do that one. And then the internal opportunities, we do have IGPs, which is being rolled out. People are free to apply. They can look for the opportunities internally and to see, okay, this aligns with your development plan and this is what they would want to do. And if there's an opportunity, they can actually go and have a discussion with the prospective manager.
Wonderful. It, the recognition part was interesting, Vikrant. And now, we are coming to the end of a podcast. Second last question, which I like to ask to many of my guests is, Vikrant, what is your, everyday routine and how do you keep yourself abreast, about the data or analytical knowledge around it? And how do you manage your PhD program and your, job at Fortrea, Vikrant?
I call myself a bit of hustler. Though my wife is strongly against this because she says that you need to really spend time on certain things. But I do it, we can say, in a hustling way. Like the PhD you mentioned. So at this stage of my career, I started doing PhD. It's gonna take me 3.5 years to finish it. and it requires a lot of, you can say, I didn't realize that it's going to require that much amount of work which is actually needed now. So sometimes I rethink that, did I make the right decision or not? But that's what I am. For me, every day coming to work is that, okay, let's see that what exactly we want to do it, and in a way we can help our internal teams to make something better, because we are in a in a company where actually the things have an impact on patients. And I'm calling this multiple times that the patients is the one which gets benefited of this one. And I'll give you an example is that somebody asked me, where do you work? When I say I'm working clinical research organization, so they might say, okay. But when I tell them, okay, the medicine what you're taking, maybe would I play a part in that one? That gets them interesting. So you can try to associate with that one. I'm a very curious person. That's the reason I keep on doing something additional every time, and see that how your work can actually add value either to your team members, either to yourself, or even to the family as well, right? So keep it very simple, but kind of a hustler person. Try to do everything, and sometimes try to do nothing. That way as well.
Nice, Vikrant, thanks. Interesting. And one last question, Vikrant. One advice to, the SaaS founders who are watching, you rightly mentioned, you nailed it that, no single org can work on its own. So what would be your advice to those SaaS providers who look collaborating with the healthcare systems, Vikrant?
And this is from past experience. We have seen that some of the tools looks very good, but they didn't function the way we would want it actually those functions to
Okay.
behave. Uh, my advice to anybody who is working in SaaS and would want to in the healthcare domain is that speed without trust is short-lived, right? That is the one thing which they definitely need to have it. Speed is good. Everybody wants to have a product in the market, right? But that product needs to deliver what primarily the capability needs to be mentioned. So the trust in that product needs to be there. This healthcare field is very regulated, right? And there are systems and processes which is already in place. So if a SaaS provider comes and says, okay, use my system, but it doesn't attach with existing ones, then it won't fit the purpose. So they need to think of an ecosystem, right? Kind of a scenario where they'll go and join, and their new product will add value this one rather than replacing it, but then add value or complement this one. That is the two things which primarily I would say that as new SaaS founder could adopt it, from all discussions what I had with vendors in my past. But we feel that they need to work on building more trust and making something which fits into the systems what we have it, and make it work in a complement way.
Absolutely. No, that's a big, and that's a very sensitive and advice. Thanks for sharing that, Vikrant. I kind of get a similar, advice from other speakers. But they say that they have to be okay with the customization that we ask for. So you're,
Yes. No, that will always be there, right?
yeah,
So what happens is that you you get a system which has the capabilities which you need is around maybe I say 60 to 70%, right? And that's a good start for any system to have it, because the systems are not built only for your organization. It's built for larger organization which has capabilities beyond what primarily you might be needing, right? Now, in that case, the customization would be required to really bring that system up to 100% of the utilization. Now, what will happen is, and this is one of my past experience, that we had a very good system before even ChatGPT came into the picture. But the problem was that there were too much of customization which we need to do, and it took time for us to do that one. And that actually lost the, I would say, the interest from the senior members, okay, that it is taking time to do it. So customization will be there. How fast you can
okay.
customization, right? And make it in a way that it actually have an impact. That one of the things which we saw, okay, if anybody can do it, it actually will solve the purpose. not all customization can be done by the SaaS providers because they're not only for your organization, right? They're working for multiple other organizations. If your customization is going to take 6 months, that's not a worth of effort they're going to put in that way. So as a partner here, I would say, not you can say as a customer, we also need to be sensitive in terms of the customization we are asking. So it works both ways. So we need to have the understanding of the ecosystem they are in, and they also probably need to a little bit more focus on the priorities what we have it. So pick some, not all, but those some should be a little faster than.
Super helpful, Vikrant. Thanks again. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing golden nuggets here. And looking forward to be in touch with you, Vikrant, and maybe host you again in our upcoming podcast.
No, thank you so much, Nageshri, and to the Koot team. This was really, really wonderful. I was very excited for this one. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Look forward to speak again whenever there is an opportunity, anything that I can add value. If there's anything you need further from me, please feel free to reach out to me.
Absolutely, Vikrant. Thank
Bye.
you so much.